I think they got the Fantastic Four right. I think the family dynamic was there, chemistry was there, and also their celebrity status. They're known superheroes in their universe. What I think this movie got wrong was how bad they did Victor Von Doom, because Victor Von Doom is such a he's like an Avengers level threat, and he gets taken down by 4 people in this movie. And it's understandable that they didn't get him right, because this movie already has such a big job of introducing 4 characters to a mainstream audience, convincing them that they have superpowers, convincing them that they have this family dynamic. So it'd be a whole nother. Doctor Doom needs a whole trilogy. He needs his own universe
origin
of movies. There's this whole odyssey to Victor Von Doom. Maybe they didn't have the rights to other villains. And they're like, well, we have to do Doom, but we have to streamline it.
He's basically supposed to be Tony Stark with magic. Magic is a whole other barrier you have to get over to include with superpowers, like superpowers and magic. This guy is on a whole nother level. Like, he could take down Thanos.
The reason why I'm so excited for Marvel MCU proper getting the rights of Fantastic Four and bringing in Doctor Doom is that they have a sole mission. The Russo brothers, they're directing Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, and Kevin Feige, they've said out loud, we want to get Doom right. These 2000 movies did not do Doom justice, and the 2015 Josh Trank movie did not do justice for Doom as well. So I'm very, very, very excited to see how they're going to bring Doom to life, and the fact that they brought Robert Downey Jr. back to be one of the most iconic heroes, and then they're trying to bring him in to be one of the most iconic villains, I think would just be the biggest flex for an actor to say, yep, the reason why this shit is so good is because I was Iron Man, I started this shit, and then I revitalized it by being one of the badass villains of Doctor Doom.
This is going to be fun.
Hey, what is poppin'? Corn dogs, corn kernels, welcome back. It is Just Play It. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Jimmy Crack Corn. I'm Captain Pop. I'm just a buttery, salty boy. And in the popcorn bucket with me is my best buttery buddy boy pal, the corn dog himself. He's going to need some mustard because he is the slick glizzy. He is Slick Nick Jerry Corn Dog Justice. Welcome in, buddy.
Thanks, my friend, and thank you for the introduction, as always. James, I'm super pumped for this one. We have another entry into our NCU, the first one of the year for us, first one of this season. And James, are you ready to flame on today?
Oh, I'm ready to flame on, get this thing started, really stretch my legs, and another invisible pun. Yes, Nick, you said it. We are entering our NCU. For those not familiar, it is the not-so-cinematic universe, a universe of superheroes that is not connected to one of the 2, maybe just one, vastly successful cinematic universes known as the MCU. So we thought, hey, we should shine a light on those forgotten projects that are not included in the MCU or any other major cinematic universe. Maybe like Transformers or Godzilla and Kong, they got some big stuff going on over there. But these ones that could have the potential to be connected, but just aren't, but kind of are. Because Marvel's kind of adapting multiverse stuff. One of the characters in this movie did show up in Deadpool and Wolverine last summer. So they're MCU adjacent. But Nick, how crazy would it be if we ever got to the MCU one day? It's a big palette to touch, I know. Do you think we'll get there one day?
I think we'll get there one day.
Well, Nick, I have a crazy fucking announcement because this year we are going to the theaters. The reason why Fantastic Four is on the slate 2005, 2007 is because, as a reminder, I won the end of the year wrap party quiz. The grand prize was picking the movie that we see in theaters. And Nick, don't forget, I'm going to remind you every week, you got to pay for my movie ticket and my snacks. God damn it. Now I'm going to run up the bill. Strap in, buy a ticket. You have a gift card or something there.
Free movie tickets. They're going to be in the mail here pretty soon.
Oh, there we go. All right. So
I got them.
I thought this was the perfect opportunity to go into the movies and enter officially the MCU along with the Fantastic Four in their very first entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I had a tough time, Nick, and I'm just going to geek out. I want to talk about some superhero stuff and movies in general. I had a tough time deciding what movie I wanted to see in theaters, because there's a couple Marvel movies that I was excited about. DC's Superman trailer, which came out in Christmas, which was when our Wrap Party episode dropped, and I started thinking about 2025 movies that we were going to go to the theater, watch, review, and talk about on this podcast. And I thought, the Superman trailer looks really, really good. I've never been a big Superman guy. I like Henry Cavill as Superman, but this seems like a fresh restart of the character. This could be a good movie. And that trailer was very convincing. I thought maybe this might be my in theaters pick, but Fantastic Four First Steps, I thought was, if there was any movie that we can watch that's part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I thought this one could be it, because it is kind of detached from the main timeline. I think these characters in some way, shape, or form are going to be absorbed into MCU proper with the Doomsday Avengers movie and Secret Wars. They're going to get in there somehow, but this is standalone enough. And it was Kevin Feige's project he was most excited for. He wanted to get a lot of things right with Fantastic Four and its villains, which a couple movies in the past have not gotten right. So I thought, I'm very excited for Thunderbolts. I feel like I'm the most hyped for that, but it's too connected to the DNA of where Marvel has been and where it's going. As of this recording, I saw Captain America: Brave New World this weekend. Thought it was entertaining. I'm sure there's flaws to it, but I just didn't really feel. I hate watching movies from a critical standpoint. It is kind of a job, but I like doing it for this podcast, and I think it's fun to do and dissect. But I just had a good time in the theaters, and I didn't think that would be a good one because that one is also super connected. But Fantastic Four this July, First Steps. Nick, we're going to the movies. That's my in-theater pick. I'm revealing it right here, right now. I'm excited. Tell me everything.
I'm pumped. I had a feeling when I saw these Fantastic Four movies for us this week on the docket of movies to watch. I had a feeling once I saw that trailer come out that you might be leaning that way. Very happy that you are. Obviously, Pedro Pascal, who's a great actor, pretty hot right
friend
now.
Of the show too.
Definitely friend of the show. Thanks to the unbearable weight of massive talent. He's. I think he's going to be great in it. It's another star that the MCU is being able to bring in. It's an interesting property. It's a property that, like you said, usually doesn't get super connected into the MCU, but I mean, we did get John Krasinski as
the cameo and Multiverse of Madness,
as Mr. Fantastic there. But it's kind of one of those properties I feel like that's hard to touch because it's a team, it's a superhero team, which is a little different. So I'm excited to see it. I would have seen it with or without you making the pick, but I'm glad you made it the pick because we're going to get to come on here and talk about it with all you guys.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. That's going to be a big load to take on, I'll say.
We know how to take big loads, James.
We really do. What I'm excited for First Steps is that they are really embracing that retro futuristic look. Because when Fantastic Four debuted in the comics, it was in the 60s, and it was very much, they were part of their time. And what we'll talk about movies from this era of the early 2000s, they, obviously they're trying to update a lot of things. They're trying to modernize a lot of things, but it seems like they're going back to formula and putting Fantastic Four in the 60s, or at least an alternate universe where maybe it's not the 60s. Maybe everything just has 60s aesthetic to it. And everybody has like a mid-Atlantic accent and the TVs are old, or maybe it is the 60s. I'm not quite sure, but
it feels like it almost has like a Jetsons vibe, right? Like this is what the 60s thought the future was going to look like.
The greatest Fantastic Four movie to date, which is not a Fantastic Four movie, The Incredibles. That's what it is kind of emulating the most. That kind of old school 50s golden era Americana stuff. So I'm super excited. I was excited for a lot of movies. I had a tough time. I thought Superman or Fantastic Four or Jurassic World Rebirth, that's also coming out in July. We're going to be eating movies in July. We're eating good in the neighborhood this year. But yeah, excited to announce we are officially entering the MCU. And for this week, we got some NCU business to deal with. But Nick, this movie takes place in universe 121698, which is not the MCU's 616 or the other Fox franchise of X-Men of Earth 10005. But sometimes they play with each other's variants, multiversal variants. And Nick, we actually have to do the same thing. We got time jump to a different setting here. We need to check in with our Oscars results from the last time we were talking about it, because we made Oscar guesses, and now we need to see if we were right or so wrong. So James from Earth 616 passing it over to Jimmy Crack Corn from Earth 10005. Take it away, douchebag. Wow, some real classy treatment. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, other James.
Hey, other Nick, use a chump.
Yeah, you 616 a-holes think you're all that in a bag of corn.
Oh, I'm from the sacred timeline. I think I'm better than everyone else. Hey, fuck you.
Fuck you. Hey, 10005 Jimmy Crack Corn here with my buddy Nick on a stick, ready to share the results from the Oscars.
Now listen, we may be from different universes, but the results are all the same, as well as our blind guesses we made before the big show.
Let's spill the kernels on whether or not we were correct or way off from our Oscar predictions we made last episode. Nick, what's our first category?
First category is Best Actor.
Oh, so we're sticking with these accents.
I mean, would it be weird to switch? Okay, we could bring it back. Our first category is Best Male Actor. James, you picked Ray Fiennes from Conclave. I picked Adrian Brody from The Brutalist, and the winner was, of course, Adrian Brody from The Brutalist.
GG.
Thank you.
Way to go. Next category is also Best Actor, except this one's a woman. Nick, you went with Cynthia Erivo from Wicked. I went with Carla Sofia Gascon after learning about the controversial tweet afterwards, but still stuck with her. Didn't matter because Mikey Madison from Anora was the actual winner.
James, next up is Animated Feature Film. We both chose The Wild Robot, and we were both wrong. The winner was Flow.
Never heard of that. I still haven't actually even looked up what that was.
I believe it's about a young girl who gets her first period.
Better than Wallace and Gromit. Okay. Coming up next was cinematography. Nick, you went with Dune Part 2, while I went for Nosferatu. I also am a fucking idiot because I said it was in black and white, and it totally isn't. It's totally not in black and white. I was thinking about the ads and the promos, and everything looked black and white, but the director, cinematographer actually just used a lot of muted colors to emulate black and white filming, but it is technically filmed in color. And then I watched the trailer, and there's for sure scenes in color. So big L for me. It doesn't fucking matter because The Brutalist wins for cinematography. Nick, you and I got that one wrong. We're not doing too hot this year. Spoilers.
Not the best, but about what I'd expect from us. James, next up is costume design. You chose Wicked. I, for this one, chose Nosferatu. But James, you were correct in this one. The winner was Wicked.
Yes. Is that my first W? My first correct?
That's
pick?
the first W.
All right. So we're at 1-1. Let's go. Next category, we had directing. Nick, you chose Brady Corbett from The Brutalist, and I went with friend of the show, James Mangold, for A Complete Unknown. The winner was Sean Baker from Anora, and spoilers, Anora had a great night, and this guy had a great night. This guy did everything. He won an Oscar for directing. Apparently he also did the editing because he won for best editing as well. This guy won 4 Oscars for the same movie. Pretty wild. So Sean Baker coming out of nowhere, best director, and maybe some best others.
We'll see. James, next up is best music for the original score. You chose Daniel Bloomberg from The Brutalist. I chose Clement Ducol and Camille from Emilia Perez. But James, you were correct. It was Daniel Bloomberg for The Brutalist.
2 picks on the board right now. Just took out Oscar Town. That was a nice song, right? Because the next category was Best Original Song. Nick, you chose Never Too Late from Elton John, Never Too Late. And I went with Like a Bird from Sing Sing. Doesn't frickin' matter because that crazy ass movie Amelia Perez takes home the Oscar for Best Original Song for El Mal. The bad. The bad for us because we are doing pretty awful this year.
You're never a loser when you pick Elton John. James, next up is Best Visual Effects. We both picked Dune Part 2, and the winner was Dune Part 2. So that one was easy.
Yes, sir. And Nick, we were also in simpatico, in tandem. We were on that same tandem bicycle for what we thought the best picture was going to be. We were going for that just run-of-the-mill guys running out of the Holocaust, and that sucked. The Brutalist is what we went with. But shocker, Nora, Sean Baker, Mikey Madison, best editing. Crazy. Nora, the big winner of the 97th Academy Awards.
Yeah, didn't love it. From what I hear, it's kind of like a rom-com dramedy.
Well, would you rather have that or like the run-of-the-mill stuff? Like last year, Oppenheimer, we were thinking clear winner, going to run away with it, and then surprise, surprise, is what it is, except you chose Barbie for the best picture.
I'm totally fine with something coming out of the blue. Just was surprising knowing what the Oscars usually chooses and what they chose. Not a bad thing. I do love when the winner of this one comes up. I do love the whole Hollywood thing. Everybody from that movie got up and thanked sex workers all over the world. And I thought we shouldn't be like, we should be helping prostitutes, not praising them. But that's me.
That's how we think at Universe 10005, bitch. So Nick, to tally our scores, I got 3 correct. You got 2 correct. Together, we got 5 categories correct, 50%. Not the best. I think last year we had maybe 6 or 7 correct picks, but then again, it was an easier path to victory. This year was a little bit of a wild card. Then there you have it. Now let's pass it back to those numbnuts across the multiversal pond and Universe 616 so they can talk to you about them Fantastic Fours.
Hey, 616 Nick, fuck your life. Bing bang.
Whoa, those were some crazy results from some crazy characters.
Go fuck yourself, Nick, from Earth 10005.
Yeah, you're a dick. I didn't like that one.
Who's that guy?
That's a bad version of you.
Who does he think he is?
Where was he? I don't
know.
All right. Well, Oscar business is wrapped up. Nick, we got to talk about the Fantastic Fours because we are diving into the Tim Story duology. It's not a trilogy. It's only 2 movies from 2005 and 2007. Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. Nick, when I knew I was going to want to put us in theaters to watch First Steps, I almost thought, should we watch the 2015 Fantastic Four that apparently is awful? But I was like, I don't know. It kind of seems like it'd be, we would have more Fantastic Four movies than Back to the Future movies. That is our franchise of the year, but they're not quite a franchise. It's a property.
Right.
And what's weird about properties is Fantastic Four movies before First Steps, they were all distributed by Fox. Fox is not actually the owners of Fantastic Four because back in the 90s when Marvel Comics was going bankrupt, they had a fire sale of all the characters. So, X-Men went to Fox, Spider-Man went to Sony, Hulk to Universal, Ghost Rider, Columbia, New Line Cinemas, Blade. They were just going all over the place. So this film production company named Constantine that you might have recognized on the intro credits, it said produced by 20th Century Fox and Constantine Films. They've done, there's a German company, but they've done some recognizable things. But they bought the Fantastic Four rights in 1986. And are you aware of the Roger Corman 94 Fantastic Four movie?
I am. We talked about possibly doing that one on this podcast before.
I think I want to add it.
Okay.
I don't know about the Josh Trank 2015 one, but I think I want to add the 1994 one. Because it's not a franchise, it's a property. But Constantine film had to make a Fantastic Four movie every 7 years. And the reason that movie exists is because at the end of the 7-year run, which would be 1993, they asked B movie director Roger Corman to start production on the Fantastic Four before 1992 ran out. So December 28th, 1992, they started production on the Fantastic Four. They shot it in about a month or 3 days. I don't know.
What a great reason to make a movie.
Yeah, it was
we're running out of rights.
Just to retain the rights. And it never saw the light of day until a bootleg copy showed up on the internet. And in 1993, it was supposed to come out. And then Marvel actually bought the rights to the movie just to destroy it because they thought it was going to damage the IP. But copy did leak out, and we're going to find it. We're going to watch it. And then so in 1999, it was going to run out in 2000. Fox was jumping on board, and Fox and Constantine Films asked Marvel for an extension. And then so we got Fantastic Four 2005. Then we get Rise of Silver Surfer, which comes out in 2007. The two movies we're watching and reviewing this week. And then Josh Tranks comes out in 2015. So that was part of that 7-year extension. So they said, you guys start on the production 7 years after the last movie comes out, which would be 2014. And Fantastic Four comes out in 2015. Now that Disney has bought Fox, they absorbed those agreements and leases and licensing from their prior deals. So mathematically, if we're still going by the 7 years, I would think Constantine Films is out of the picture now because they started production on this movie in 2024 when they would have to start at least 2022, which I think is why we finally are getting it.
That would make a lot of sense why, yeah, it took so long for them to bring the Fantastic Four in.
Yeah, because they were never part of the MCU. It was always just Fox doing their own thing with the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and then the Josh Trank one apparently was like ass cans. So I don't know if I want to, maybe one day we'll touch it, but I think it'd be fun to fit in that forbidden bootlegged 94 Fantastic Four. But to business this week, Fantastic Four from the 2000s, Nick, we got a joint, both directed by Tim Story. Tim Story got his start on music videos, a lot of hip hop and R&B songs, including the likes of Tyrese, friend of the show from Four Brothers, Too Short, and NSYNC. He had one little known movie throughout that music video run, and then that actually led him to direct Barbershop, which, has Ice Cube in it. And so I'm thinking maybe he, all his music connections, he got hooked up with that. Barbershop led to Taxi with Queen Latifah and Jimmy Fallon.
I forgot that movie.
A movie I considered adding to the watch list at one point, honestly. That's a Tim Story joint. This mixture of comedy and action led him to 2005's Fantastic Four. And all of those above movies are 20th Century Fox productions.
Wow.
He would later go on to direct Ride Along with Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. He did a lot of Kevin Hart comedy stand-up things as well.
Gotcha. Okay. That's a weird path for him, but...
Have you heard about this guy before, or just the movies?
Just the movies, but James, I did hear a little bit about this guy, and it's a little unfortunate, but this guy is a certified piece of shit. Now...
Oh, no.
This is...
Paul Haggis piece of shit?
No, this ain't no Paul Haggis.
Sexual assault? Oh, okay.
No, but... this is early 2000s. Things were a little different back then. But there is a very well-known story during the Rise of Silver Surfer.
A very well-known Tim story?
Yeah. Where...
Sorry.
Oh, dang, you did something. Well, this little Tim story goes, he almost made Jessica Alba quit acting.
I saw this.
So Jessica Alba, Smoke Show, I mean, I'll always remember her as... the woman I saw when I was, 14, 15 years old, drop dead gorgeous, I think she won sexiest woman of the year a couple of times. Beautiful. Well, she was, as an actress trying to really emote herself in a lot of her scenes and was trying to emotionally tap into something and actually cry during her emotional scenes. It was not good for Mr. Tim Story because he's asked her, can you cry prettier? You're really ugly when you cry.
You look ugly right now.
Yeah.
I don't want, nobody wants to see this.
He's it's have a flat face. Don't scrunch your face when you cry. Keep your keep your face flat. We're trying to see your face. We'll add in the tears and CGI later on. Just stop that.
CGI tears, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This led to Jessica questioning her whole role in the industry. She was like, am I bad at this? Am I like really bad at this? She's not the best in the world, but she's not awful. And so, yeah, Tim, what's your deal, man?
Be better, Tim. You gotta be better, Tim. And there's a couple scenes in these movies that are like questionable with Jessica Alba. But what's a better part about Tim's story is that he was actually the first African American to direct a superhero movie.
No way.
Yeah, you know, we'll always acknowledge milestones for firsts in the movie industry. And Nick, this movie's gonna go ahead and star Ioan Gruffudd, Michael Chiklis, Chris Evans, Captain America, aforementioned Jessica Alba, and Julian McMahon. Now, I gotta say something about Ioan Gruffudd here. So I only know this guy for being Mr. Fantastic. I remember watching this movie in theaters. I played the video game when I was a kid on the PlayStation 2. And that was back in the times when every movie came out with a video game. And the actors from the movie would supply the voice. So Ioan Gruffudd, Michael Chiklis, Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, and Julian McMahon lent their voices for the video game. That is wild to me.
It was a big deal.
That's wild.
To have a video game.
Make mine sunny side up, Matchstick.
Sweet. It's hero time. Flame all the way on.
That's wild to me. But Ioan, I know him as Mr. Fantastic, but Ioan Gruffudd apparently was super dedicated to a character named Horatio Hornblower. And now Horatio Hornblower is a fictional officer in the British Royal Navy during the Napoleonic Wars and the protagonist of a series of novels and stories by C.S. Forrester. Nick, 8 TV movies, 13 hours of Horatio Hornblower, if you want to see Ioan Gruffudd playing that role.
That sounds like the most British made-up character ever. Horatio Hornblower. Like
Horatio Hornblower.
Yeah. I'm an officer in the British Royal Navy. Yeah, I don't know. It's
because I was looking at his IMDb and I thought, I only know him as Mr. Fantastic, but he's been in a lot of things, and 8 of those credits were Horatio Hornblower. And in an interview I saw of him talking about Fantastic Four, he's like, he's Welsh, so he's like, well, you know, back where I'm from, people know me as Horatio Hornblower, so it's very nice to get out and actually be Mr. Fantastic. And people out in public say, hey, it's Mr. Fantastic, instead of Horatio Hornblower. And I'm like, who the fuck is Horatio Hornblower?
I love in interviews when someone says a character or a name or references something where no one knows what it is. Unless you like specifically.
In America, we're like, what the hell are you talking about?
I always forget the British have like their own TV and culture and whatnot. It's like, what are you guys?
They got their own stuff over there. So weird.
What are you guys doing over there?
Michael Chiklis, super highlight in this movie, was a fan of the comics, and he told Stan Lee that he loved the character of Ben Grimm and would love to play him in a movie if the time ever came. You know, when these things happen, you're like, are they just saying that to say it, or is it true? I would like to think it's true. So he was actually super stoked to be here, fan of the comics, and he advocated for a practical suit because we get a practical thing in this movie. Whereas all future iterations, I assume, are going to be CGI. Mr. Chiklis, I know him as The Thing, and I know him from The Shield, the show I never watched, but my parents did.
I just always view him as a cop. He's always a cop.
Yeah.
Cop that doesn't quite play by the rules, kind of bends them. He's not dirty, but he's close.
And then we all know Jessica Alba and Chris Evans, obviously super Captain America. And then Julian McMahon from Nip Tuck. Nick, dollar signs for these movies. What are we looking at?
Dollar signs for these movies. So our first Fantastic Four, 2005's Fantastic Four, estimated budget of $100 million. Box office worldwide of $333 million. Now, on that same note, Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. We have an estimated budget of $130 million and worldwide gross of $301 million. And I was really surprised with that number because I remember the Fantastic Fours being good, but I didn't think that they were big money makers.
We were hungry. X-Men trilogy, at least the first 2 movies, were fantastic.
Say that again.
And got a lot of money for Fox. And Kevin Feige and Marvel and execs, they're seeing the opportunity for growth in the superhero genre in the early 2000s because X-Men pops off, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man pops off, Fantastic Four does great at the box office. It wasn't critically well received, as we'll go over at the end. And then some DC stuff was going on across the street in Burbank. So we were in definitely a renaissance era of superhero movies because our 90s stuff was Spawn and the unreleased Fantastic Four movie. But Blade was a highlight, a movie we watched and reviewed. So go listen to that episode if you haven't listened to it, which was a significant stepping stone for superhero movies. And then we go into the early 2000s with the X-Men's and the Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and then Dark Knight. And then
Daredevil.
we're really on an upswing. Daredevil we enjoyed Daredevil. Elektra, a little bit of a step back. But Nick, long story short, for the money, sequel gets $30 million more dollars, but then makes $30 million less than the original. So just a slight step back, but not the worst.
Hey, it's still a great return if you're the studio.
And for that studio, we are going to provide you guys, the audience, the listeners, the watchers, the Awatus looking over us, with our pre-pop points. Now, this is our gut reaction points. This is a double feature week, so we're doing 2 movies. We're on double duty. We're going to kind of streamline our typical duties here, but we're still doubling up our duties. So, Nick, double cheeked up. I want to see your pre-pop points for Fantastic Four 2005 and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer from 2007. On 3, let's reveal our pre-pop scores, and we'll see if they change by the end of this discussion. 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right. We are pretty split here. Nick, you are holding up. Yeah. Is that the rating or is that the movie title?
Both. So I went ahead for Fantastic Four and first initial gave it a 4. I gave Silver Surfer a 4.1. On first glance, I thought it was a touch better, but we'll go over that. And James, I saw that you said Fantastic Four number 1 was in the 7s, and Fantastic Four Silver Surfer was somewhere in the 6s. So you're feeling 7s, maybe high, maybe low.
A little cloudy, like a big Galactus right now.
There you go.
Okay, all right. We're a little bit split here, so let's see each other's thoughts, and maybe we'll change our minds. Maybe I'll meet you closer to the 4s. Maybe you'll find your way up closer to the 6s or 5s. Who knows? But Nick, let's go ahead. Double duty time. We're going to get into Fantastic Four 2005 first. I'm going to get into this log line, and then we'll jump into Plot Talk Part 1. Log line for Fantastic Four 2005. A group of astronauts gain superpowers after a cosmic radiation exposure and must use them to oppose the plans of their enemy, Dr. Victor Von Doom. If you're a fan of the comics, that all sounds pretty familiar. Not anything crazy. Let's see if we get a little crazy in this movie. In some plot talk.
Plot talk.
Something I appreciate about this movie here is we're going to jump into these origins pretty much right off the bat here. So we have our crew. We have Reed Richards. We have Ben Grimm. We have Sue Storm. We have Johnny Storm. And we have our boy Victor Von Doom. We need to go on a space station. And we need to test how organic materials are going to react to cosmic energy.
Reed Richards is in the comics. I think they're college rivals. They're both smart guys, Victor Von Doom and Reed Richards. Reed Richards obviously being played by Johan Griffith here, and Ben Grimm is Michael Chiklis, and they're kind of best buds. Ben Grimm is kind of the muscle for Reed. He kind of always protected him in school when people were picking on him. And one of those guys being Victor Von Doom. And when they're introduced, I just want to shout this out. Minute 53, we get a Wilhelm scream in Reed Richards' presentation. So the cosmic storm cloud that's in his hologram presentation, it actually does the Wilhelm scream as it passes by the camera. I thought, little sneaky Easter egg there to start this out. But we do get a hint that Reed Richards is bankrupt, and if we know that because fucking Victor Von Doom had a Wired magazine at the ready to he wanted to hear Reed Richards out and then just perfectly toss it on a table and land right in front of Reed. So the audience were like, we got that he needed money. So for our Fantastic Four, and we meet Sue. Sue Storm is like a co-worker of Victor Von Doom, previous love relationship with Reed Richards, and Johnny Storm, Chris Evans, is her brother, cocky little douche hunk. Victor's gonna fund this space trip. So when we go into space and we get into that space station, this is where we're going to get exposed to that cosmic storm, the radiated particles and molecules are going to alter DNA, and we're going to get our powers.
Yeah, and everything up to this point is pretty stereotypical. Like you were saying, Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom have this rivalry, but Reed doesn't quite know it's a rivalry because he's a little socially awkward, but he's the smarter one. Von Doom's jealous. He wants to get the girl, Sue. Reed still loves her. Ben's the muscle, right, as you were saying. So everything's pretty stereotypical, including this cosmic storm scene, because the storm's going to be here at this time. And Ben Grimm's out there putting the samples out and woo, 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 woo. No, storm's here early. Of course it is. It has to be. So like you said, yeah, things go wrong. Storm comes. But everybody survives, which is a miracle. Ben's waking up in a hospital bed. Everything seems pretty fine up to this point. But if you didn't know that this one was coming, you're living under a rock called The Thing. Everybody's going to slowly change, and we're going to go ahead and get everybody's powers here.
I think we see the powers of Johnny Storm first, and this freaking snowboard scene is so goddamn funny to me. But Emily, my wife, had a huge issue with the snowboard scene because Johnny is getting his temperature taken, and it's Maria Menounos.
I like that laugh.
She plays the character of Sexy Nurse. She comes in, takes his temperature. It's like way off the charts.
You are trouble.
Trouble is my middle name.
Oh, you're hot.
Why, thank you. So are you.
And he's like flirting with her and says like, oh, I'll take you out later. And then like kisses her on the cheek and then walks out. And then we end up going hella skiing with Johnny and Sexy Nurse. And they jump out of a helicopter on a snowboard and skis. He catches on fire down the slopes, lands in a pit of snow, making like a hot spring hot tub, says, hey, do you want to join me?
Care to join me?
And then she's like, okay. And then so my wife was like, wait, hold on. What the fuck was that? So this guy has a temperature of 209. The nurse just disregards that. He kisses her. She's like, that's sexual assault. Leaves her post, goes hella skiing. He catches on fire. He lands in the snow naked and says, join me. And she just goes, shrugs her shoulders and just jumps in for sexy time.
This guy's a rock star, man. He's just an astronaut who got back from space, man. He's out here pulling some tang. All right, don't ask questions. This is 2005, and the cool guy gets the girl. Don't worry about it.
And those girls are going to get objectified because later on, when we meet up with Ben Grimm, he's already turned into the Thing, and we know that Reed Richards is stretchy and Sue Storm can turn invisible and do force fields. But we're going to have this really awkward, dated, and objectifying scene where Jessica Alba strips down naked to sneak past the police barrier to get to where Ben Grimm is. My problem with this scene is that, one, allegedly this was added after Jessica Alba was cast in this movie. So you're like, that's a little sus. And two, a little bit of just kind of misogynistic eye candy, just like, yeah, we're just going to make you naked. And, oh, don't worry, it's going to be for the plot because you have to go invisible, but you have to take off your clothes because they can't turn invisible and you can sneak through the police barrier. Three, the problem is fucking Reed Richards and Johnny Storm walk past the barrier with no issues without getting naked and getting invisible. I don't know if you noticed this, but they get past the police and she's putting back on her clothes. She's like, oh, I can't believe you made me do that. And Reed's like, all right, cool, we're through. I was like, how did you get through? That might be the snowboard scene was pretty offensive, but that was up there. But besides that, Nick, this bridge scene, I would call the best scene of the movie because Ben Grimm is sitting on the Brooklyn Bridge. There's like a suicide jumper and he kind of tries to talk him down, but he's too scared of the Thing. And when he falls down on the bridge and there's cars coming after him, there's a semi truck. When Ben Grimm jumps down, decides to pull a hero move and shoulder checks the truck, it looks really, really freaking good. It looks really good. Like no dated visuals at all for me in this scene. And I learned that they actually rebuilt this whole entire section of the Brooklyn Bridge in a parking lot. And so all the like not the scaffolding, but like the metal bars of the bridge, those were all built, and then they blue screened them in. So that shot where we look at the top of Ben Grimm and then swing down to his face and he's sitting on over the ocean, that was blue screened in. I didn't even notice. But then that truck, they put like a metal bollard in the ground and actually sent the truck forward on a wire, and then it actually smashed into that, and then they just green screened Michael Chiklis in. I thought that's a great use of practical and computer generated imaging. This whole scene worked for me for showing us everybody's powers. And we'll meet what I think is the biggest piece of shit in this movie of Debbie, who is Ben Grimm's fiance, who was disgusted at the sight of him when he came back as a Thing, and B showed up to this bridge scene out of nowhere to see Ben Grimm be a hero.
I don't know why she was there.
Pulls off her engagement ring, puts it on the ground, and Ben Grimm with his big fat rock fingers can't pick it up, and it's so heartbreaking. And I thought, wow, what a dick.
It's a bad move.
Talk to me about the bridge scene. It's my favorite scene. I think it's fantastic.
Say that again?
No pun intended. And I think it works really well for all heroes involved. And it's a post 9/11 New York bridge. All the firefighters are into it. Hey, give me a chopped cheese.
Yeah, I think it was a really good scene. So to piggyback off what you were saying, visuals in this movie in general are done really well. I think the $100 million budget is pretty well spent. I was a little surprised. I thought that was pretty high for 2005, but they put it to good use for the visuals. Absolutely. I also think this scene played into a bigger part of the movie, which was there was this conflict about them, whether they should cure themselves or keep their powers for good. Because up until this point in the movie, and even a little further, there's a bigger turning point. But they're talking about like, oh, we can cure ourselves. We can cure ourselves, thinking of it more as a disease than as a gift. And so Ben here, right, is depressed. He's the Thing. He's the only person in the Fantastic Four who can't pass off as normal. So he's super depressed. And then he has this moment where he's able to save somebody, feels really good about himself. But then Debbie comes in with the ring. And now he's like, my life will never be the same. I lose the woman I love. And so there's this like very emotional highs and lows, especially for Ben, about being a hero versus wanting to go back to normal. That'll play itself out here in a minute. But I thought that was a great part of it as well, because he's sort of the first person to play hero out of the Fantastic Four crew.
Yeah, he's definitely, I think, the focal point of the storytelling in Fantastic Four 2005. On the flip side of that, who was also on the space station was homeboy Victor Von Doom, who also got crazy powers, and he has problems of his own, Nick.
He is a problem, though. I'll tell you that. The problem is Victor Von Doom. It's like he's just who he was with some powers. His company's going broke because of the issue up at the space station. That's obviously a very expensive mission. He can't keep things afloat. He's kind of basically just Reed Richards now. I wish there was another Wired magazine with Victor Von Doom going broke. That would have been a good little like.
Yeah. And they'd be like, you know what? Tables have turned.
But so he has that issue. And he's starting to change, and he's getting real angry. His whole life's falling apart. Sue's going after Reed now. They're going to be an item again. So he loses his woman. He loses his money. Everybody's propping up the Fantastic Four as these superheroes. And he's mad.
It's reminiscent of the Willem Dafoe, Harry Osborn, when the shareholders kick him out. And he's like, you can't do this to me. What is everything I sacrificed? It's like, but it was like that, but like way more like kind of lame and watered down. It wasn't like they just said like you're out because of one thing.
He has a very similar Green Goblin moment too with his Doom mask, where it's like calling to him, where he like walks up to it like it calls to me. But
so I'm wondering if there's maybe a little Sam Raimi inspiration for that arc.
Absolutely. But he has a plan now. So his plan is he's going to prey on Ben's weakness of wanting to be cured and really turn Ben against the rest of the crew. He's like, oh, Reed and Sue are off playing house while you're stuck as the Thing. He's not trying to cure you. They get into this fight, which I thought was one of my least favorite scenes of the movie. We'll go over that later. But he goes ahead. Doom convinces Ben to be cured, turns him back into good old Michael Chiklis. We're like, there he is. But Doom had ulterior motives because he goes, I'm basically going to kill your friends now, and you're not a big rock guy who can stop me. Ben's like, oh, I made a huge mistake.
I've been had.
Yeah, Doom gets his hands on Reed Richards, but not before really causing some collateral damage to a man who had no business being hurt. James?
I'll have that be the finale of my trilogy of his problemness, because Dr. Victor Von Doom basically says fuck you to the doctor that says, hey, we should send you to the CDC. Smacks him into some glass. The guy that cut him out of, you can't do this to me, the bank shareholder, the bankers, whatever those guys were, homeboy gets a fucking hole in his midsection, blasted. I was like, that was savage. I forgot that happened. And then to top it off, the sweet little cherry on top, he just straight up just like Jimmy the doorman of the Baxter building, which is Reed Richards' science building. He's like, hey, like, you all right, Victor? And then the next thing we see is a shot on the sidewalk where Jimmy just yeets Jimmy out of the big New York door. Just a big violent scene. And I was like, what the fuck did Jimmy the doorman do to deserve that?
Nothing. Asked him how he's doing. That's all good doormen do.
And he's like, fuck you.
Rips him. And this is not the end of Doom being a problem. So he has Ben Grimm out of the way. He's going to torture Reed basically by freezing him, right? You freeze rubber. They have this whole, it's really funny because there's this whole like science bit behind it. Like, what happens, Mr. Smart Man, when you super cool rubber? You're like, or freeze rubber. It's like, well, you don't have to be a scientist to know that. That's not good, but okay. Then he's going to fire a heat-seeking missile that he has access to at Johnny, and also messes up Sue. So he's pretty much divided and conquered our heroes, and no one really stands a chance against Victor Von Doom here.
But then Ben Grimm decides, it was such a big conflict in the movie to figure out how to turn him back. Now they just wishy-wash. They just like, I'm turned back, I'm back in the thing. I'm turned back. It's like,
can we turn anybody into the thing at this point?
It seems like you can turn it on and off at the luxury of this machine, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But it doesn't seem like it's that big of a struggle to make a commitment. They didn't build it up where it's like super painful to go through it, or it requires a lot of energy, or like Back to the Future, it requires plutonium. It's a rare source.
I think it did require a lot of energy the first time, which is why Doom could do it, because he could harness electricity, but he wasn't there to put him back.
The power. Maybe it's easier to get fucked up like a rock than it is to be put back together.
I guess.
Maybe there's an undo button on that thing. Yeah. A little plot holey there, but hey, you know what? Ben is gonna re-rock. He's gonna get bricked up and go up to Dr. Doom and say his catchphrase of "It's clobbering time." And now we get a rescue of Reed, and Johnny is coming back in the mix after taking the missile out into the ocean, blows up like a garbage barge. #garbage barge. And now we get a team up against Dr. Doom. Nick, I see here you wrote down, Ben accepts his power and great responsibility. A Spider-Man reference.
Yeah.
I like that.
You have to. So our four heroes, they're going to take down Doom. Sue's going to create a force field around him. Johnny's going to make a fire tornado.
Go supernova.
Around him. So those are the two like really important things. Ben's going to kick open a fire hydrant for water, and Reed Richards, his whole, I mean, he helped come up with the plan, but his physical contribution is he kind of turns into a loop-de-loop water fountain.
Yeah. It's like a chicane. It's not a loop-de-loop.
Yeah. And it kind of corkscrews him in like, woo. And so they fire this water at Doom after he's been melted. His metal skin is melting from the fire, and Reed hits him with the callback of, what happens to metal when it's heated, then super cooled? And then Doom just like freezes in place because he's hardened, and our heroes prevail.
And we're going to send Dr. Doom in a very Ark of the Covenant style shot on a shipping container to Latveria. And my question was, did they imprison him or just ship him back?
He's being taken care of by top men.
Who are these men, Nick?
Top men.
And then,
why would you extradite him? Why wouldn't the United States government?
I don't know. I thought you should arrest
why would you send
guy,
him back to like
to be
Latveria? I know it's made up. Sounds like a third world country. Sounds like where the Dracula's from. Like, it just sounds like, what sounds ominous where a villain could be from?
Transylvania.
Yeah, like Latveria. You're like,
yeah,
okay.
It's a fictional Eastern European country.
Yeah, send him back to his home in a less technologically advanced place to hold this supervillain. No, keep him at the Pentagon.
To take over
what are we
doing? Make Doom stop. Come on now.
Ben does find love because he ends up dating a blind gal who's like,
Kerry
I don't
Washington,
care what you look like.
Way, playing Alicia Masters.
So she's like, I don't care what you look like. She can still feel him, obviously, which might even be weirder for a blind person. She's like, I don't even have a concept for what I'm feeling right now. But hey.
My wife also asked, and this will get asked in the next movie. She's like, do you think his penis is always hard because he's a rock? And I said, it might be like a chain of like balls. And then maybe it's like when you press those string toys and then they like flop over flaccid and then like you release it and then it like sticks back up. I'm thinking it's not like one piece. I'm thinking it's like a chain of rocks that can have some sort of movement. Because the thing being made of rocks, he's got to get bricked up somehow. Rocked up, cocked up. And I was trying to include that joke in here at some place.
That's a tough one. I got nothing for you.
We don't get the answer in the next movie, but it is asked.
Yeah, Johnny Storm is definitely curious here. But let's wrap up Fantastic Four, our first one here.
I would love to hear your thoughts of what they got right, what they got wrong. I think they got the Fantastic Four right. I think the family dynamic was there, chemistry was there, costumes. X-Men made that kind of snarky jab at the comic accurate costumes in X-Men 2000 when Hugh Jackman says, what, you guys actually go out in these things? And then Scott Summers says, what were you expecting? Yellow spandex? And it's like, hoo, got him. We're going black leather Matrix. We're cool. 2000s. But comic book fans want to see the actual accurate costumes. Now, these were a little bit modernized, or they weren't super faithful to the look, but they were still blue. They were kind of onesies. And they do make a practical explanation that their powers can go with their or the suits can keep up with their powers. So like Johnny's suit doesn't catch on fire where every other clothes do. Sue's suit goes invisible when all clothes don't. Reed's can stretch, and then Ben's just a rock. But a nitpick I have, when Johnny got that 4 logo added, that wasn't up there, so that would burn up or get stretched out or not be invisible. And same with the sponsor patches that are going to show up in the next movie.
It would have been funny if Sue went invisible. There's just a floating 4.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there she is. So I think they got the origins of Marvel's first family. They stay pretty faithful to that. And also their celebrity status. They're known superheroes in their universe. My favorite Easter egg, speaking of celebrity status, they're always on the tabloids. We saw the Wired magazine, and Sue's going to see her face on the cover of People magazine. But on that People magazine, you can actually see a picture of James Marsden. And then below him, it says James Marsden eyes his next superhero role. And then below that, it says the mystique of Rebecca Romaine. So I'm like, oh, we're making little allusions to Fox properties of X-Men. So in this universe, X-Men is fictional and it's like a movie. So that was a fun Easter egg to catch. It really got the dynamic of the Fantastic Four family aspect right. What about you? What did they get right in this one?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of you because I do agree with you on that. I made a comment at the beginning of Plot Talk where I said everything's pretty stereotypical in this movie, right? The characters are very stereotypical, but I think that's a good thing. I didn't mean that in a condescending way. I think there's that old school kind of cheesiness factor to it as well, right? These are not polished people. They don't have, there's not an insane amount of depth to them. They're the Fantastic Four, right? We don't need this whole origin background story. Where we pick up with them is 10 minutes in, we hit this cosmic storm, we have our power, and we know them as the Fantastic Four. It's a little cheesy, but kind of what I'm hoping for in First Steps is that, like you said, that 60s kind of Americana, a little cheesy, a little on the nose characters, because that's who these people are. I think that, along with everything else that you said about that family dynamic, they're infighting, they have jokes. Johnny's constantly pranking and messing with Ben, and but eventually it's a little brother relationship and a sister relationship, and there's a romantic. It just all works together really well. So I think they got the dynamics correct.
Yeah, dynamics are on point. Casting was on point. What I think this movie got wrong was how bad they did Victor Von Doom, because it's not comic book accurate. And Victor Von Doom is such a he's like an Avengers level threat. And he gets taken down by 4 people in this movie. And it's understandable that they didn't get him right, because this movie already has such a big job of introducing 4 characters to a mainstream audience, and convincing them that they have superpowers, convincing them that they have this family dynamic. So it'd be a whole nother. Dr. Doom needs a whole trilogy. He needs his own universe
origin
of movies. Yeah, his origin is crazy. He's born to a witch. He wields magic. In this movie, his skin turns to metal. That's not correct. He makes a metal armor after he meets Tibetan monks, and there's this whole odyssey to Victor Von Doom. So there's too much to go with it, and I'm thinking they included Doom because he's the most famous Fantastic Four villain, and maybe they didn't have the rights to other villains, and they're like, well, we have to do Doom, but we have to streamline it. So I think Victor Von Doom's character and his treatment fell a little short in this one, and it's understandable why. It's already such a big job, and we're not guaranteeing that we're going to be in a universe. We're not going to be stuck with these characters for 10, 15 years. This is a lot of these movies back in the day are one and done, or at most you get 3 movies. So I get how they didn't have time to develop him and do it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And as weird as this sounds, this movie does try to stay somewhat quote unquote grounded, right? It's a cosmic storm. There's no magic involved. Magic is a whole other barrier you have to get over to include with superpowers, like superpowers and magic. So that's a lot. He's basically supposed to be Tony Stark with magic, which like you said, which makes him this massive threat.
Yeah. He's like just below Tony Stark in I think intelligence, or well, I don't know. I think he's neck and neck, but he's always kind of like second place to the technological advancements that Reed or Tony Stark would do, and also second place to Sorcerer Supreme of Doctor Strange, because he studies magic and he studies science and technology to try and bring his mom back from making a bad deal with Mephisto, who's like the devil character of the Marvel comics. It's a whole thing. So I get how they couldn't get into all that
in the comics. Movie. In the comics, there's one I'm very aware of where he basically goes down into hell and tells Mephisto to go F himself, and then talks to Lady Death. And he's like, this guy does not, like, this guy is on a whole nother level. Like, he could take down Thanos. Like, he's an Avengers level threat.
Yeah. So it's understandable how they couldn't quite get it right for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, what went wrong for this film, critically, this isn't necessarily my thought process, but critically what went wrong for this film. So we went through at the beginning a lot of these movies that came out in the early 2000s, right? Sam Raimi's first 2 Spider-Mans, we had Hulk, the first 2 X-Men. We even had like the Hellboy and the Punisher and Daredevil and Elektra. And so up to this point, we were doing, like you said, these one and done movies. They're fun. We don't care too much about canon. You know, we could fudge things a little bit. We're just trying to pump these movies out and give the people what they want.
Or keep the rights.
Exactly. Well, you had mentioned it earlier, but the superhero movie game kind of changed on June 15th, 2005. And that's when Batman Begins released. And Christopher Nolan kind of took superhero movies into this really artistic, really deep direction. And I think changed superhero movies for the better. Everybody got on their game real quick and said, whoa, yeah, let's develop these characters and let's build some really solid backgrounds and develop some good villains, right? Well, unfortunate for Fantastic Four, 3 weeks later, they debut. So you went from Batman Begins and all the critics go, holy smokes, this is what superhero movies are. And if you're Fantastic Four, you're kind of pooping your pants going, Ours isn't like that. Ours is more of that fun.
But not really, because what does the studio care about?
Money.
Making money.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's more of that critical.
Which I think actually makes a lot of sense, because I mean, when we get to the end and see the critics' scores on this, I thought, wow, those are super low. So maybe it is that juxtaposition of, well, I just saw Batman Begins and this is a clown show compared to that.
Yeah.
If I'm a hoity-toity critic. So yeah, I get it.
I think that's what went wrong for it from the critic side, because we talked about this. Critics don't like to accept things for what they are, which is, oh, hey, we're making a fun origin story for a really fun property. And they go, I don't care. That wasn't Batman. It's like, well,
that wasn't Christopher Nolan. This is Tim's story.
That was an unfortunate timing issue that I think they ran into critically. And I think it still kind of wears that stain around as, oh yeah, that Fantastic Four, it was cheesy and a little cheap. And it's like, no, it wasn't. It was this, it's basically the exact same movie as every other Marvel property that came out in the early 2000s, which is fun, entertaining, and exactly what the people wanted at that time. And then it just kind of got this really bad release placement.
Bad timing or not, this movie still got a sequel, and it's called Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, the other Fantastic Four kind of villain, and another villain that's going to be revealed in this movie. Probably the only three villains they had the rights to. So, Nick, let's get into Rise of the Silver Surfer from 2007 that still said, you know what, Dark Knight, I don't care if you're coming the next year. We're coming.
We're coming back, baby.
So, Nick, go ahead. Give me the log line for the sequel to 2005's Fantastic Four.
Sure will. The Fantastic Four learn that they aren't the only superpowered beings in the universe when they square off against the powerful Silver Surfer and the planet-eating Galactus.
Oh, okay. We got big bad up in this B. And we're going to see what he looks like and what he's about in Plot Talk Part 2.
Plot Talk.
We're going to start off pretty hot. I don't think they gave us a time frame, or I don't think anything was ever revealed to us between the last movie and this one, but it seems pretty, maybe a few months. And already we're getting some mysterious happenings around the globe. Reed Richards, of course, smartest man in the world. We're going to need him to go and investigate this, but Reed in his classic nerdy kind of has the flubber issue here. He's trying to balance.
I thought of that. The flubber conflict.
He has to balance his science with his wedding to Sue, right? He's getting married to Sue Storm. It's all working out for him, but nothing gets to go perfectly for a superhero.
Professor Brainerd, played by Robin Williams in the 97 movie Flubber, he failed to appear at 3 or 4 weddings because of his science addiction to just discovery and inventing stuff. This one's a little different because Andre Braugher from Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
Captain Holt, yep.
Yeah, he's a character, and he's a government military figure in this movie, and he asked Reed to make a machine to sense any imminent danger of something. I forgot, what was it trying to look out for? Just sensors for meteors, or
sensors for meteors, because these craters are getting left in the world and they don't know what it is.
Yeah. So it's understandable because one, Reed is curious, and also this is for the better good of planet Earth, but it is it's putting a dampening on the relationship between him and Sue.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Sue is also a scientist, and she's very involved in a lot of this work with him. So I don't know how you wouldn't have an understanding where, hey, I know it's our wedding, but if the world's under attack, we're superheroes, right? Where there's 4 of us on this planet, we should probably go check it out.
And we're fantastic.
Say that again?
But no, Sue Storm does not see it that way.
Nick, I have to bring up a nitpick. Nitpick with the bachelor party and the bachelorette party. So Johnny kind of blackmails Reed to do a bachelor party because he says, oh, what if I tell Sue that you're studying your science instead of getting ready for the wedding? And then so they go out to the club, him, Johnny, and Ben, and they have this really campy, cheesy scene where Reed is dancing on the dance floor, but Nick, his street clothes are stretching. That doesn't work. We have
Dude,
special suits for that.
Homeboy is twisted up in the air. He's twisted back.
He's doing the Twizzler on the dance floor and like wrapping arms around girls. And then Sue comes in with Andre Braugher and really just kind of like puts a wah wah on it. But then later, Sue says, "I'm not mad. I did even crazier stuff with my bachelorette party." But then when we go to the wedding, it's literally her and Alicia. Alicia is her only bridesmaid. I was like, wait, you and blind Alicia had a crazy bachelorette party? I didn't know what happened. Like, just you two?
What are you going to do? Turn invisible? She can't tell anyway.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
What did you get into? I want to see that. I want to see the hangover with Sue Storm and Alicia Masters.
They've only been friends for like a few months at this point, so she has no female friends.
I know, no. Yeah, my nitpick is that she has no friends. And apparently she got into some crazy ass shit. Also, Jessica Alba in this movie, very distracting. I don't know if they pumped up the blue eyes and the blonde hair, but man, it's like it really stuck out in Silver Surfer. I was like, she looks too artificial.
Yeah, so a couple things that went wrong for her here. So one, they really pumped her up. I think just the year before is when she first won like Sexiest Woman of the Year. And so I think they tried to really doll her up and basically make her a supermodel in this movie instead of an actress in this movie. Number two, she is wearing a wig in this movie because she had so much hair bleach put in during number one that they basically said, we can't do that again. Otherwise, your hair is going to fall out. So they compromised and did a wig. So she looks super different in Silver Surfer as she did in the first one.
Yeah, it was distracting in that introductory airport scene.
Yeah.
I was really caught off guard by that one.
Add that with the director telling her not to cry or emote her face and basically have her face stay flat and basically be a model. Like I said, the whole movie, it makes her acting really bad in this movie. It makes her look really distracting. She just looks like a set piece. Like just like a mannequin.
She looks like a doll. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I'd want to quit too. And they go through this whole power switching gag in this movie, and then so she gets Johnny's powers, and then of course her clothes burn off, and then again she's naked in front of a crowd of people. I'm like, man, we're really objectifying Alba here in this one and these two movies. Can we not put her through the ringer that much?
33-year-old me is like, that's not right. 16-year-old me was like, I like this movie.
Yeah. We see it now. Didn't age well. Never aged.
So of course at the wedding, things go wrong. Our alarms are getting tripped, and we're going to go investigate, and we meet our Silver Surfer. So like in our previous movie, we get our introduction into our guy here pretty darn quick.
Doug Jones he's playing the body of the Silver Surfer, but Lawrence Fishburne actually provides the voice of the Silver Surfer. And I think it was rumored that Lawrence Fishburne was going to provide the voice of Galactus, but in the creative direction they took with Galactus in this movie, they thought, okay, he can't really have a voice because he's not going to be a humanoid figure. So I think my theory is that they switched him last minute to voice Silver Surfer as like a known name and a cool voice. And apparently Doug Jones had no idea that they were going to do this until a month out, which is very reminiscent of David Prowse playing Darth Vader when he was doing all the lines. And then they dubbed over all of his lines with James Earl Jones, which I think is for the better. But it was very reminiscent of that because you have actors like performing the lines and like they're proud of their work and they're like, oh, I can't wait to see this. Can't wait for my family to see this. And that's just dubbed over. So another classically trained black actor taking the white man's job. Am I right, Nick?
Yeah, I'd love to be the guy opening his paycheck, expecting something. It's like, actually turns out you had no speaking lines. So you actually get the daily minimum.
You were a glorified extra on a silver surfboard.
You're just a stunt double, pretty much.
I have to throw this out there. I remember my friend from high school, Tyler Gordon, unrelated to me. Him and his buddy saw this movie in theaters and cosplayed as the Silver Surfer, and Tyler was the Silver Surfboard. And I remember this picture on Facebook of them showing up to the Century Theaters downtown, and his buddy Max was like spray painted silver and all his clothes were silver, and he's like a thumbs up, and Tyler had like a cardboard, just like his face was like, those things you put your face through to take a photo. He was just in like a cardboard surfboard painted silver. And that's the one thing I think of when I see this movie.
I love that.
That's how those guys committed to a bid on a Thursday night.
Knowing Tyler, yeah, that sounds exactly like something he would do.
Shout out Tyler.
So James, you alluded to it, but yeah, it's our Silver Surfer. We're going to chase him down. He is fast on his surfboard. He is powerful. He is hard. He is elusive. Johnny is going to sort of catch up, have a little encounter with him. And what's going to happen next is his molecules get destabilized and they're all able to switch powers. The second I see this, I say I know exactly how this movie's going to end because you don't go through the trouble of doing all this. But this whole power switching scene may be my least favorite of the movie because it makes all their powers seem really fake. It's like, it's not who they are. It's just all changing. At one point, Chris Evans becomes a rock and Ben Grimm changes back into just a normal guy. And they're like, haha, this is funny. It's like, either this is really serious or I don't know. It just seemed really like trivial. Like this is weird.
It was very shenanigan fueled. There's a lot of shenanigans. Even in the first movie, there's like a shenanigan montage of them going through their superpowers in the beginning of this movie when they're on the airplane. Obviously, the Thing, Ben Grimm's Thing, gets seated in the middle seat, and you're like, oh, it's so funny because he's the biggest one. And Reed like extends an arm out to put a carry-on bag in like a faraway overhead compartment. So there's a lot of shenanigans in these movies, and I think the power switching was really for the shenanigans and the camp and for the kids. But I will put money on the line that you have not seen the TV show Secret Invasion.
No.
Okay, so they do the Secret Invasion before Secret Invasion. So that's about Skrulls and aliens who impersonate people as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And what's her face from Game of Thrones? And she basically pulls a Johnny Storm at the finale of that show, where apparently they were collecting DNA of all the Avengers in the Battle of Upstate New York and Avengers Endgame. So they had all these DNA samples in like one vial. And then she I guess she injects it or drinks it, and she gets like a lot of powers. So she has like a Groot arm, and then she has like a Drax arm, and then she's like a Captain Marvel, like light beam and like Hulk strength. And it's like, oh my God, we're really going like kind of off the edge with this one. So Johnny in the third act does the same shit. So yeah, I agree. Kind of like downplays their uniqueness and their special abilities, and they switch so willy-nilly. Like they just touch Johnny and then they switch.
It's the willy-nilliness of it.
Instant.
That.
Like it's not Spider-Man 2 where he's like going through like a mental break and he can't like shoot his webs because they're organic in that one. So he's like losing his Spider-Man abilities because he's losing himself, and there's this whole identity crisis and like kind of mental break in Spider-Man 2, but this one's just like switch. Willy,
It's like,
willy,
your
willy,
molecules are messed up and you can switch. Let me touch it real quick. It's like,
yeah. Hey, it's funny.
Yeah. We do find out this Silver Surfer, he's associated with planets being destroyed. So they don't know that they're not alone in the universe, but they can tell planets are just out there getting destroyed. So I don't know. Reed Richards doesn't seem that smart to me. But we are going to be asked by Captain Holt, Andre Braugher, General Hager in this movie, that we need you to work with Dr. Doom. It's like, okay, we had to bring Doom back. He's the most recognizable thing.
We only have the rights to 3 villains, or however that went down.
I do wonder when you break up the properties, because some of the properties share villains, like Daredevil and Spider-Man both have Kingpin as a pretty main villain. So how do you decide which villain goes with a property? I don't know.
Just majority. If they're part of a team for the majority of their time, then they belong to that team. So like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were for the majority leads in the Avengers. So Marvel had the rights to them, even though they were the kids of Magneto and they were technically mutants, and Fox had the rights to mutants and Magneto. So they never called them mutants in Age of Ultron. They called them enhanced, and they were like Hydra experiments, and they never said Scarlet Witch. They just called her Wanda, and it was Pietro. So like there was like the way they split it up is just like, well, they're in both these Venn diagrams, but they're technically mostly over here. Oh, but you can't say this word because it infringes on our rights that we own over here. It's crazy. It kind of sucks that Marvel had that fire sale in the 90s and just like really had people like Sony like hold on to Spider-Man because they have to produce a Spider-Man every so often so that they retain the live action movie rights. It's like, fuck. Why'd you guys do this?
Why'd you go bankrupt?
Why were we so desperate in the 90s?
So Doom did get freed / waken up / reinvigorated when the Surfer flew over.
/ defrosted.
Yeah, I don't really quite know what's going on with them. But we do find out that the Surfer's board, the surfboard, is the source of his power. And so we have to separate him from his board, and then we'll be able to defeat him.
Yep, not comic accurate, but that's what we're doing with this one.
Our plan is to do that. We set up this trap and system, and we're going to corner him, and we have these devices that Reed Richards built. But by the time we catch up to him, he has a conversation with Sue, and we realize he's not the bad guy. He's just misunderstood, James.
Well, he's that, and also a little blackmail-y or a little tit for tat, whatever, because he came to Silver Surfer's world and was going to destroy it, and then he's like, "Don't destroy my world. I'll just be your herald. I'll provide service to you, but you have to spare my world." So we're like, all right, there's a little bit of backstory. There's a little bit of comic accuracy there. But yeah, he's no problem fucking up Earth. But Sue connects with him, and then he says, "You remind me of my lover," which is Shala Ball, I believe, back on planet Ta or whatever. So we're getting a little bit of connection between Sue and Silver Surfer. But then obviously shit's going to go awry here. We're going to have the classic military fire. So they fire a missile. Silver Surfer absorbs the missile with the board, saving Sue and saving the gang. But then since the Fantastic Four got kind of a little bit shifty on the plan, they get thrown in like a timeout, I think, in their military compound.
Pretty much, yeah. So all of this is weird to me because everybody has different priorities. The military has a priority. I don't even know what the Fantastic Four is doing half the time. It's very Sue-centric for a lot of the middle of this movie. I'm not quite sure what Dr. Reed's doing, to be fair. But yes, no, they're going to be in a timeout. The Silver Surfer has been captured. He's been knocked off his board. They're trying to figure out what the board's about. Doom is also here because we're all working together now. So we all know that things are going to go great here in this government facility. And go great it does because Dr. Doom is going to get his hands on the board. What a rascal. Who could have seen this one
Classic.
coming? So now Doom's got the super powerful surfboard. You think, wow, he's going to be a major problem. We'll see if he is. He takes off to China because he's just off on the board. But the four they're not going to be far behind. They're going to free our Silver Surfer, and they're going to pursue Doom in the Fantastic Car.
Yes, I love this. I love that the Fantastic Car makes an appearance. Also love the gratuitous amount of product placement. So we saw it on the patches of Johnny Storm's suit. It kind of looks like a NASCAR suit with all the sponsors on it. Mm-hmm. And I think at one point Ben Grimm is like sipping on a Slurpee cup from 7-Eleven. And this Fantastic Car is a Dodge. And then Johnny does the old like 2000s commercials for Dodge. Like, is that a Hemi? Oh yeah, brother.
Hemi? Of course.
Doesn't make any sense because if Reed was making this car in secrecy in his lab, why would Dodge have any part of this? Shots fired at Dodge. Chrysler, you're kind of the third place out of the big three of American car companies as well.
They might even be lower than that.
They were obviously the biggest sponsor for the movie. So I thought it was funny that the Fantastic Car was a Dodge. They had like Dodge racing seats. I hate product placement, but I also kind of love it because it kind of it helps me relate to the characters. I'm like, oh, we're all living in the same world. And what's funny is that the Fantastic Car in the comics can split up into different parts. And in this one, when it splits into 3 parts, they made sure that the separated sections also had Dodge logos on the front of their separated sections. I was like, oh my God, this is, I hated it, but I also loved it.
I love it. Reed Richard creates a supercar and he just decides to soup up a Dodge. But leave
Drops
the Hemi.
Yeah. It's so product.
What are we doing?
Like I was into it on this one. It was and this car chase scene was fun. It was a lot of fun in the air, reminiscent of Johnny when he chased the Silver Surfer around initially. I thought that was my favorite sequence of the movie. I thought visually it was very cool. They were incorporating a lot of famous architecture buildings in New York and like going through the tunnel, and you get to learn that Silver Surfer is not a bad guy because he doesn't like obliterate a bus full of people. He just phases through it. He just has this mission. So visually, I thought that was like the most exciting scene for me in this movie. And this Fantastic Car scene is also kind of reminiscent of it. But Dr. Doom, again, is just kind of like, he's in the comics, he's crazy powerful, super smart. And in this movie, he's like special ability, spin move, and then like kind of tornadoes everybody. It's like, dude, he can like do so much more crazier stuff.
And he has the board. It's like he should be unstoppable.
Yeah. In the comics, Silver Surfer can't be separated from the board. No one can use the board to like gain
the
powers.
Board is part of him. Yeah.
The board is just like his car.
Feet.
It's a way to get around faster. It's not like a source of power. The power cosmic is the power source of Galactus and what he gives to his heralds, which is like a whole crazy thing. So like this whole idea that Galactus is a part of this is just, it seems like it's way above the Fantastic Four's pay grade at this point in time.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how Fantastic Four property got Galactus. That's kind of what I was asking with the villains. How did you get?
You mean property as far as like rights?
Yeah. When you got Fantastic Four, you got Galactus.
Galactus is like one of the main villains for the Fantastic Four. So my thought is that Constantine Film and Fox, they only have the rights for a certain amount of villains. And they're like, all right, we got Doctor Doom, who's crazy powerful, and we have Galactus, who is a freaking giant man,
juggernaut,
who eats planets. Yeah, so
it's a lot to tackle. Lot to tackle.
Well, we're gonna tackle him coming up here.
Yeah, but not before Doom using the
board.
Okay, so it uses the board to create some kinetic energy metal thing and just basically stabs Sue with it. Just really hits her.
Throws a spear and then penetrates her, and then she dies.
Yeah. Now
for a second,
I was a little surprised by this because her force field has been pretty powerful throughout this movie and previous movies, and I really thought she should have been able to at least throw up a shield on this one.
So she had a shield because she was trying to protect Silver Surfer, but in that scene in the forest when the military and Reed Richards are setting up their 4 things to capture the board, when Silver Surfer confronts Sue, she puts up a force field, but then he just kind of pokes his head through and it's not an issue. So the force field has no effect on the power cosmic. So it made sense for what the movie's rules were,
I guess.
So Sue is down for the count. She's dying. Galactus is coming. Galactus is not a giant man. He's actually a cloud, but there is like talks from creatives and fan theories that it wasn't Galactus's final form, or it was like a storm like covering Galactus, and he was actually there. But on the surface, it appears that Galactus is a giant cloud. It's looming over the Earth, and that's a threat that's coming. But we still got Doom as a problem. So Johnny, pulling a secret invasion,
It's clobbering time.
gets all the powers from Sue, from Ben, and from Reed. I think it gives us kind of like our most dynamic fight scene, I think, out of the whole 2 movies, actually, because we have different abilities coming into play. Johnny's sneaking up on Doom, and he's using like the stretchy ability, but he's also like trying to burn him while he has the stretching ability, and then he uses the brute force, the Ben's rock ability. So it's really cool. It's really dynamic of a fight. But I love that Ben Grimm hops in a crane and just like throws a metal beam via the crane and just yeets Doom into the ocean and like sinks to the bottom. And like, that's the last we see of him.
You beat him. You got him. Just the ocean. He sinks. He's dead, I guess, but probably not. Galactus is still there. We go, okay. So Doom was the appetizer, apparently, even though he's wildly powerful. And now we're going to take on Galactus, the Cloud. So Silver Surfer gets a surfboard back. And with Johnny, they're going to fly at Galactus. So there is a good scene. I think maybe my favorite scene is the last scenes with the Silver Surfer. He has actually a lot of depth for a character, for having very few speaking lines. I really like him. I really like how they made his exit more emotional and his sacrifice more emotional, because he does sacrifice himself in the cosmic rift, goes ahead, uses his power. I'm not quite sure how it works with Galactus being a cloud in this one, but he kind of just... What does he do? He kind of implodes.
He charges up the board, because in the movie, like, the board is the source of the power, so the board's lighting up and then kind of like explodes with a power light beam, and then it like dissipates the cloud. This wouldn't happen in the comics. Galactus can't go down like this. So it kind of just seemed like a way that we need to take care of the big cloud problem. Also, you can kind of see, like, they hinted at what Galactus was supposed to look like, because when he's traveling towards Earth, like, it looks like he's going over a planet like that looks like Saturn, or maybe it is Saturn, and you can see his antlers in like a shadow as like the cloud passes over. When Norrin Rad, that's Silver Surfer's actual name, when Norrin Rad goes up inside the cloud, you can kind of see again like a faint outline of Galactus's silhouette of his iconic comic book iteration look. So they hinted at what he's supposed to look like, but yeah, he's just like a big giant cloud, and then Silver Surfer is just able to explode him with the power cosmic. And it's like Galactus, that's where he gets his... Silver Surfer gets power cosmic from Galactus, so I don't know how he can weaponize it against Galactus. So it's kind of like a lazy way that we need to wrap this up. And again, I'm just thinking, like, did they only have the rights to Doom and Galactus? Because they really fucking put themselves in a tough spot.
Yeah, once those two are done, I don't know if they were planning for a third movie and they were thinking we can't.
They were planning for something, and we'll get a little hints of that coming up here.
So Silver Surfer does sacrifice himself. Johnny is healed, so everybody gets their powers back, because it's a very quick wrap up on that end. And with all being well, we can return back to the beginning of this movie. We have our wedding. Wedding's going to happen. James, I see you have a question about the wedding.
Who are these people at this wedding, and are they in Japan or China?
I don't know.
So they're in this conflict with Galactus ends in some sort of Asian country. I'm guessing it's China, because they flew over the Great Wall.
Because Doom ran off to China. So I think, it ended in China.
According to the film's plot, the final battle takes place in Shanghai, China. But for unknown reasons, Sue and Reed get married in Japan. Sue is also dressed in a Japanese kimono wedding gown for some reason.
But then all the spectators of the wedding are like these Asian people. I'm like, who are these people? Because the wedding in Manhattan was a bunch of white people and a Stan Lee cameo. So I'm like, who are all these randos? And then they flew Alicia out here and the same officiant out. Was this like the next day, or did they stick around for a week? And that's a lot to plan.
Yeah, did they help cleanup efforts afterwards?
This wedding is a nitpick.
Nitpicks. Wedding's a sham. But of course, duty calls during the wedding. We're the Fantastic Four. We're never gonna catch a break. And movie is over, except for a little mid-credit scene here with our Silver Boy.
Yeah, he's floating through space, and then at the very last second, we see his eyes open up. And we're like, oh, Silver Surfer is alive. And they did have plans for a standalone Silver Surfer movie. So that's where that came into play. And allegedly, they were going to show Galactus's true form in the Silver Surfer movie, like his actual comic book accurate form. Whereas this one, he was just a giant cloud. So there's talks of, oh, was he always a cloud, or was that just like a vessel or like a shell? And then we were going to see him in the next one. I just think they were too scared to show a giant man in space. It's a tough sell already, especially for early superhero movies where we're trying to prove ourselves and like get people on our side.
If you were afraid to do Doom's magical side, taking on Galactus is big. I could also see a world where you start running out of budget. I didn't see any of that reported, so this is just me speculating. But there's probably a world where you look at the budget and go, I don't know if we can ask for another $20 million to do this correctly. And then you leave over the remnants of the shadows of his helmet in other parts and go, it'll just be an Easter egg that his horns are there, or his antlers.
That is plot talk for Silver Surfer. Credits roll. Nick, new tradition. I like to point out funny names in the credits. I'm going to start out with Fantastic Four. Funny names I found in the credits were Peggy Gormley, Derek Goggle, Silver Butler, Margarita Krapivkina, Ann Gooby, Jennifer Lawstump, and Sissy Grover. And moving down to Silver Surfer, we have repeat names of Silver Butler again, Ann Gooby again, John Buffery, and Pink Bobsledder. Which I think was a phony name, because when I verified that, it was like Christian something, like credited as Pink Bobsledder. I was like, you're just trying to be funny. Come on. But still, funny name. Talking points, Nick. Let's get into them. I want to talk about some characters here. First and foremost, Dr. Doom. I hinted at, I think they didn't really expand upon him correctly, and I get it. It was a big task to bring him in and trying to introduce his power set and why he's a villain, but the whole reason about why he is so compelling is because of his backstory, and it really deserves a whole saga on its own. So I think the major downfall of this movie is the villain, because Dr. Doom is so dynamic and so iconic and deserves so much better, that this movie didn't have the luxury of getting right because of the unguaranteed future. Could have just been one movie. You don't know if you're getting a sequel. You don't know if you're getting a whole expanded universe. So that was a big flaw for me that I noticed in this movie. And the reason why I'm so excited for Marvel MCU proper getting the rights of Fantastic Four and bringing in Dr. Doom is that they have a sole mission. The Russo brothers, they're directing Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, and Kevin Feige, they've said out loud, we want to get Doom right, because we had the Forbidden 94 movie that never saw the light of day, allegedly. These 2000 movies did not do Doom justice, and the 2015 Josh Trank movie did not do justice for Doom as well. So I'm very, very, very excited to see how they're going to bring Doom to life, and the fact that they brought Robert Downey Jr. back to be one of the most iconic heroes, and then they're trying to bring him in to be one of the most iconic villains, I think would just be the biggest flex for an actor to say, yep, the reason why this shit is so good is because I was Iron Man. I started this shit, and then I revitalized it by being one of the badass villains of Dr. Doom. So I'm excited for it, but talk to me about Doom in this one.
We talked about, obviously, in the first one, they didn't do him right. And then in this one, he seems even worse. Less dynamic. We get less of any sort of backstory.
Leading to train tracks, you know.
Yeah, it feels like one of those old, like if it was an old animated cartoon of superhero cartoons. Yeah, he's almost like Skeletor, like, and he like runs off. And,
I'll see you later, Fantastic Four.
Exactly. And it's kind of disappointing. And even he gets the surfboard, and you didn't even need to have Galactus. You could still run with the whole surfboard as the source of the power, and Doom gets the surfboard, and now he is like unstoppable. And you have to come up with this. Doom. Yeah. But instead you do this whole power switching. Johnny gets all the powers. Felt a little gimmicky to me. and then he just basically tosses Doom around. He gets hit with a steel beam and a crane. Ben got up on that crane really fast, by the way, and then yeets him into the ocean, and then he just sinks and he's done for. So he was done really dirty in this one. He now seems like more of a nuisance than an actual super villain, like he should be. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Till we meet again, Fantastic Four. And as he's flying away, you're like, all right. They really could have just done this whole movie, another movie with Doom, right? I think that's kind of what you were alluding to. You didn't need to bring in Galactus and take on this massive bad guy as a cloud,
crazy
and then
planet killer.
then have Doom be a part of it as well. So just it did him dirty. I do want to echo the sentiments of very excited for him to get his day in the sun in the MCU.
That is their mission. Their mission is we need to do this right and not fuck it up for a fourth time. Fantastic fourth time.
I'm very curious, and this could come back to bite me if what you had mentioned about the Fantastic Four First Steps, if that is going to be probably set in a different universe on a different Earth than our sacred timeline.
It is.
And if we're going to get a RDJ cameo in First Steps, I'm not sure if that's been heard of or anybody's said anything before. Because obviously it has to be a different Tony Stark / RDJ that gets brought into this timeline. But I'm very excited and I'm itching at there being a cameo for Doom in the new First Steps.
Yeah, there's lots of talks that Doom might, Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Doom might originate from this universe, or he might come from a different one. Galactus is going to be one of the big bads, or maybe he's going to be misunderstood, like Silver Surfer in this movie. And I think a very not crazy out of the realm theory is that they might lose. They might lose to Galactus because he is this crazy planet-eating cosmic god being, crazy person, and they might lose, and then that's how they get thrown into a different universe, and they join the 616 guys somehow, some way. And I am highly, highly anticipating a Robert Downey Jr. Dr. Doom cameo, whether it's in the movie or in a mid-credit scene or a post-credit scene. I think it's pretty guaranteed, actually. The timing is a little sus, They introduced Robert Downey Jr. as Doom last summer. They start production on Fantastic Four last year. And I think it's all lining up a little bit too conveniently for that reason.
I would agree. James, another character or set of characters I'd love to bring up in this movie is the Fantastic Four themselves. So this movie feels a little weird in the fact that you brought up that last fight where Johnny gets all the powers really kind of is our big fight, our most cinematic, our best use of our effects. But that leaves my question, where was everyone else in this movie? I didn't really get to see the Thing be the Thing. I didn't get to see Sue Storm was a key part of the movie, but not for her powers. And Reed Richards kind of felt like a side character a lot of the time, just sort of along for the ride. So how do you feel they did the actual Fantastic Four team in this movie? And were you a little disappointed that we didn't get a little more action from out of them?
Silver Surfer, yeah. I think that question is a little bit geared more towards Silver Surfer in the final fight between Johnny Storm and Dr. Doom, because I think in the end of Fantastic Four 2005, we get to see every character shine and take down Doom together and mixing their powers. And as a kid, I thought that was cool. And as an adult, I think that thematically works. For the end of Silver Surfer, giving all your powers to one guy. I get what they were going for, because they're like, we need a game plan of taking down Doom. And then Ben Grimm says he'll see me coming from a mile away. I can't get close to him. And it's kind of like a little light bulb moment. If I was invisible, then I could do it. If someone had all of our powers, then they can do it. And I think they were trying to make it a Johnny Storm story arc, show that he's self-centered and that he's a ladies' man, and he's all about him. He's like a funny guy throwing out quips, antagonizing Ben. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, oh, we're going to give Johnny an arc. When my main issue was that it seems like Sue Storm was set up to have more of a character arc because she's the one who connected with Silver Surfer and kind of tried to show him emotion and try and humanize their situation and show him the light of like why this is wrong. Because in the comics, Galactus, when he makes Silver Surfer, Norrin-Rod, his herald, he submerges his morals. So he has cloudy morals. So like, that's why he's totally cool with like killing full on planets and like doesn't really have any remorse because he is under the power and the influence of Galactus. So it's actually Alicia Masters in the comics, Ben's blind love interest, that shows him the light and digs deep and digs out those submerged emotions from Norrin-Rad. And then he turns against Galactus's orders and like deflects him away from Earth. So they had that role fall on Sue Storm in this movie. So it seems like she was more set up than Johnny to have a story arc. So Johnny's story arc is a little bit more, I don't know. I don't want to say forced, but it seems like it was, they were like, they had something cooking with Sue and they didn't even know it. And they kind of forced the story arc on Johnny and tried to have Johnny Storm be the focal point of the story. But I felt like they really could have did it with Sue because she was the game changer with Silver Surfer.
Yeah. They're like, hey, Sue, just sit there and be hot. Okay.
Sit there, die, but don't cry and too scrunchy face. Look hot when you're dying, please. Thank you.
It's a weird choice when you give someone like Johnny a character arc like that because you're saying, oh yeah, he's self-centered. He thinks he's the main character. He's selfish. He wants to be the hero. And then his culmination of his character arc is he gets all the powers and gets to be the hero. So it's a weird choice to give him that character arc of, oh yeah, this is him. It's not like he's going, no, Ben, you get the powers. He's like, all right, I'll do it. I'll be the man. It's like, all right, so you're just the same guy.
Yeah. So it really seems like a huge misstep where they could have did it better with a different character, but then forced it on Johnny. So
yeah.
The only time we see their powers kind of come into play as a combo is when they're saving the Eye of London, the Ferris wheel scene.
Yeah.
That was fun. It was actiony, but yeah, I think it's just another lesson to learn along the superhero saga movies of the 2000s to apply to later projects.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Nice Silver Surfer lining.
All right, Nick, now it's time to get into our mini pops, aka our awards. This is the awards we hand out to every movie for their tiny little accolades that might culminate up until the final wrap party episode at the end of the year, starting out with our first category of best weapon. Nick, for Fantastic Four 2005, the best weapon we thought was the best answer was elements, because they used cold to freeze up Reed and they use water and heat to take down Doom at the end. So there's a lot of science stuff going on. So elements, best weapon of Fantastic Four. How about Silver Surfer, Nick?
Silver Surfer, James, it shouldn't be a weapon canonically, but in this movie, it is the Silver Surfboard. Has to be.
Surfboard? Hell yes. All right. And to wield those weapons, we need best fighters. And Nick, the best fighter of Fantastic Four 2005, we both agree it is Dr. Doom. It needs 4 fantastic people to take him down. His power set is crazy. Canonically in the comics, very downplayed in this movie, but still he held his own against 4 crazy DNA altered family freaks in this one. So Dr. Doom, best fighter of Fantastic Four.
And for Silver Surfer, the guy who wields that surfboard most often, we have the Silver Surfer himself. Does end up taking down Galactus. He is hard to catch. And he's just wildly powerful. He clearly gets planets ready to be consumed. So
he 1v1s Doom in a little standoff in the middle of the movie. He absorbs a missile. He's outrunning Johnny. He kind of fucks up Johnny's DNA. He's a crazy cosmic being and very well deserving of the best fighter. And if you want to be the best of the best, you're going to be the best character of the movie. So our MVC for these two movies. Starting out with Fantastic Four, we agree it's Ben Grimm, the heart and soul of Fantastic Four 2005. I think he had the best character arc of all of the Fantastic Four characters. Very reluctant to get his powers. He can't change or be a normal person, quote unquote, for his alter ego. So he has to go out in public, loses his girl, falls in love, embraces his new role in life. Ben Grimm, NBC most valuable character for Fantastic Four.
He really is the rock of that movie.
Yep. He's always been a rock.
Rock man. All right, for Silver Surfer, we have decided it is the Silver Surfer himself. Not surprising, he's kind of sweeping these awards. He's a title character, all right? But the Silver Surfer, similar to Ben, does have actually a story arc. He actually has some emotional depth, some character depth, a little bit of a backstory. His whole push-pull of obeying Galactus versus disobeying Galactus at the end is what this movie is all about. Lawrence Fishburne, good job voicing him. It's just a voice you can trust and you love, and we love this character. He is the most valuable character of Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer.
You know who we don't love is the biggest pieces of shit.
No, we do not.
Fictional characters that are going to make the bracket at the end of the year for being big old dirtbags. Nick, starting out with Fantastic Four, my enemy, Debbie, that bitch, fucking was just appalled at her man's look when he came back from a freak accident in space. Didn't even ask how you were. How did the mission go? She's just like, I hate you because you're made of rocks. And then Ben Grimm saves this guy on the bridge. She deliberately shows up to the Brooklyn Bridge, goes up to the front line. Ben's having a high moment of being a hero. And she just takes the engagement ring off, puts it on the ground, and breaks my man's heart. Debbie, you're a I'll have to bleep that out.
You know how there's always the joke of your girl asking you, would you still love me if I was a worm? And the guy's always supposed to say, yeah. What about the guy, huh? Would you love me if I was still a big rock man? And Debbie says no. In fact, I will make a public spectacle of me breaking off this engagement after you just saved someone's life. I mean, just real piece of shit behavior. Well deserving, Debbie.
Fuck you, Debbie.
We always talk about the screen time to piece of shit ratio, and she nailed it. Nailed the ratio. For Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, our biggest piece of shit is Dr. Doom himself. He really just acts like a piece of shit this movie. He's not threatening. He's not...
Yeah, no motive.
No motive. He's like, oh, yeah, I'll work with you guys. Go, give me that surfboard. Yeah, off to China. Like, he's just off. He doesn't really do much. Then he stabs Sue. Like, he's just like, yeah, I used to love you. Screw you. Wham.
He used to be he was a problem in the last movie. Now he's a problem with no purpose.
Yeah, he's just out here to cause issues, ruin the Fantastic Four's day, and then end up at the bottom of the river. So there we are.
And exciting stuff. We do have a best yeet from both of these movies. So, Nick, our best yeet for Fantastic Four was when poor Jimmy the doorman, Jimmy O'Houlihan, got fucking yeeted outside of the Baxter Building door for no goddamn reason from Victor Von Doom. And Victor Von Doom is going to be involved in our best yeet of Silver Surfer.
He is. But for Jimmy, real quick, I like to imagine him waking up that morning, drinking coffee with his wife, and his wife like, when are you going to retire, Jimmy? It's been 40 years as a doorman. He's like, I'm putting in my papers next week. Don't worry, babe. And then he just shows up to work.
Wham! And then we get a little, I should have retired 2 weeks ago.
Our best yeet, Rise of the Silver Surfer. No surprise, it is when our boy Ben Grimm climbs up the crane in record time, swings that crane around faster than a crane should safely swing with a piece of metal, and yeets the metal Dr. Doom out into the water and sinks him.
Smacked.
What a shot. I mean, that's a once-in-a-lifetime shot. It's more impressive than being the Thing, to be honest with you.
That is satisfying. Absolutely. And that's our mini pops, our awards for Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Nick, we're going to transition into the final act of this episode with our final review, and we're going to get there when we throw down our sarcastic selling points. Where's my notes? I'm going to go first. We have sarcastic selling points for both of these movies. My sarcastic selling point is a campy, slightly raunchy live-action version of The Incredibles.
I love it. I said, let's get 3 well-known actors and a super hot chick for our superhero movie.
Final review. Fight.
All right, Nick, final review time. We are going to reveal both of the scores at the same time from our same media outlets. We're going to start out with Rotten Tomatoes. The critics, 27% of the critics enjoyed Fantastic Four and 37% enjoyed Silver Surfer. What a bump.
Wow. The people of Rotten Tomatoes for Fantastic Four, 45%. And they also bumped up Silver Surfer to a 51%.
Wow, look at that. I thought the sequel was known for being worse, but I guess not. Let's see if that's the same with Metacritic. The critics, Fantastic Four gets a 40, aka a 4.0 on the popcorn scale, while Silver Surfer gets a 45, aka a 4.5 on our popcorn scale.
And the people have Fantastic Four at a 5.5 and Silver Surfer slightly lower, the first group to do that at a 5.1.
Wow, the first group to break ground. And now
for our arm stretching, board catching, rock clobbering, not green groveling scores, brought to you by Dodge. From IMDb, a 5.7 and a 5.6.
Whoa, Nicholas.
Call us the Fantastic Two, man, because that was unreal.
That was a dynamic duo, and that was a joke they said in Silver Surfer, actually. Wow, we're on the same page. It's like we have the same powers and our same bodies at the same time. Nick, that's what the other guys think. Let's get into what we think. It is actually your turn. You got big duty here because you got to supply me with your laughable log line, your popcorn points, and final thoughts for 2 movies.
Yeah.
Go.
I'm going to do it. So my log line is going to be for both movies again, because I think that we can get away with that. My laughable log line is a stretchy guy, a hot blonde, a wisecracking fireball, and a rock become a family.
Family.
So I'm going to break them down each individually here. So for Fantastic Four from 2005, I'm giving it a Fantastic 4.8.
Oh,
it's a decent movie. It's I said at the beginning with the Batman Begins thing, you got to watch it for what it is, and I'm trying to sit here and watch it for what it is. It's a fun, campy movie. As we talked about it, you're right. They didn't have the time to do Doctor Doom well, and that kind of sucks. We never got to see him really bring his powers up to speed. I did like the character development of Ben Grimm a lot. That's why he was our MVC. His push-pull of do we use our powers? Do we not use our powers? I appreciated the pacing of the movie a lot. They were really moving us forward, really introducing the characters, and I like that. The CGI was really well done. The acting itself, meh. The writing, it's fine. The villain, meh. That really failed there on the villain, but 4.8 for enjoyability, but stands up well, and I think overall gets kind of shit on when it doesn't deserve to be. Fantastic Four and the Silver Surfer gets a fantastic 3.8. So, this one is
so hold on. You had Silver Surfer higher on your pre-pops, but this one tanks now.
Yeah. I gave it a 0.1 higher because I didn't want it to be the same because I didn't want to be lame. I did remember being a little better because the Silver Surfer was a better villain. But let me explain why I think it loses a full point against the first Fantastic Four. Victor Von Doom didn't really need to be in the movie at all. Seemed like, he's a familiar character. Let's bring him back. His whole thing was weird. Sue not getting her story arc, as we talked about at the end, seemed really weird. It going to Johnny. Maybe they were thinking Chris Evans, he's going to be a hot actor. Let's really showcase him. Galactus being a cloud that was easily dispersed seemed like a waste. Looking back now, knowing what we know about building up good villains, the Silver Surfer, there was a lot of stuff they didn't stick to canon, and then they didn't. The Fantastic Four themselves weren't a huge part of the movie, so it didn't feel like we were getting them showcased at all. You did a great job introducing them in the first one, and then in the second one, they're just sort of there. A lot of reused same jokes, making fun of Ben, the rock guy, very campy. We talked about it a lot on the plane, right? Sitting in the middle seat. It really felt a little jokey. And then they also tried to get really serious and deep at other points. It didn't work as well for me, so it loses a full point. So a 4.8 and a 3.8 from the corn dog. James, let me hear your takes.
Oh boy. All right. I too have a laughable log line for both. And Nick, my laughable log line is Marvel's first family defeats Mr. Metal Man twice and ends up being saved by Senior Silverman. Should have called it Saving Silverman, but that movie title was already taken. Nick. Oh, Fantastic Four 2005. I'm going to give a 7. I'm going to give a 7.0.
Wow.
I think it's I enjoy this movie. I do think it gets a lot of unnecessary hate. It got a lot of things right. There is a lot of problems with it, obviously, but I think it does enough to show up as a complete movie with at least one of the Fantastic Four characters having a nice character arc and being someone that we could follow and relate to. And thematically, I think it all works. So my final thoughts for breaking them down separately, just like you. Fantastic Four. Good Fantastic Four family dynamic. And they did a respectable job for 2005. Because again, this is just uncharted territory for superhero movies. We're getting our footing. We're trying to sell the masses on superhero movies. And I think sticking to Fantastic Four's origin story and canonically correct events was good for the good guys, not for the bad guys, but for the good guys. So the chemistry is totally there. I love the banter between Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm. It brings a lot of high energy to the screen. It's very fun. Chris Evans is very charismatic and brings a lot of improv to the role. And I think they really just embody the characters. There's genuinely funny jokes in the movie. That there's more jokes that I'm laughing with the movie than I'm laughing at, which I think is a good sign. I think the casting is superb. I think Ioan Gruffudd is a great Reed Richards. I think he really embodied the core character of his nerdiness and his hyper obsession with science, and was very convincing, and really just brought the pros and cons of Reed Richards to life on the big screen. I thought Chris Evans as Johnny Storm was a perfect selection, and I thought it was great that 4 years later, after Rise of Silver Surfer, we're going to see him be the noble Steve Rogers in the MCU, which is wild to me. It's a wild concept. Michael Chiklis, I thought, was a great Ben Grimm. Really grounded the character, brought vulnerability to the character. I think the one weak point in the casting was Jessica Alba, and it's not her fault. I think they just really wanted to hire a pretty face. And like we discussed, cry prettier, and you're just kind of there to be pretty. It's like kind of set her up for not failure, but just not a good reason to shine, which is unfortunate for Jessica Alba. And then, like I said, it's a lot to cram in for the origin story, for the masses of moviegoers. I think they really had, they had something with the four main heroes, but again, Doom's story is really lacking. There's a lot to it in the comics. In this movie, he's just kind of spiraling in the background, and we spend a good chunk of the movie just kind of hanging out with the Fantastic Four, and like there's bathroom shenanigans and super powered up shenanigans, which is fun and what people want to see. It's good for the kids. Kids enjoy it. I enjoy it. I like seeing that little kind of fun, stupid stuff on screen. But Doom doesn't really have a captivating reason of his descent into madness. Ben Grimm is his accepting great responsibility, I think, is a great aspect of this movie. It's one of our main storylines, and his character is significantly important to the heart of this movie. And I think all of the characters coming together at the end to take down Doom with their unique powers thematically works. But again, Doom's character is really kind of nerfed in this movie. He's supposed to be a lot stronger, and it's not the best iteration for old Big D. Rise of Silver Surfer, my final thoughts. Ambitious, anticlimactic, convenient. Galactus is not quite right. Silver Surfer is great, and I still had fun. I'm going to give this one... I'll go... I'm going to go 5.4.
Okay.
5.4 for the Rise of Silver Surfer. I was almost going to do a 6.4, like a point below Fantastic Four. I was going to do Fantastic Four at a 7.4, but I kind of realized it had its flaws, so I bumped it down to a 7. This Rise of Silver Surfer is going to get a 5.4. So my main takeaways for Rise of Silver Surfer with those the quick summary words. So the anticlimactic part, I think it's because the heroes don't really team up against the big bad of Galactus. Their focus is really more on Doctor Doom, who kind of showed up as like a prototypical villain. There's a fun Fantastic Car sequence with Doctor Doom, but we do get that secret invasion, Johnny versus Doom final battle at the end. And it's just, I don't know, it doesn't really work. Grimm yeets him off with a crane. It's like, and then he just sinks. Like he's one of the most powerful villains in Marvel, and he just sinks to the bottom. I don't know. They kind of disregarded Doom in that aspect. Galactus in his true form is never seen in this movie. He's just a cloud. It never really feels threatening. The convenience in this movie is a bit of a problem. So Johnny absorbing all the powers, like we talked about, it's just kind of willy-nilly, switchy, wishy-washy. Like I get powers, you get powers. Like it's not really an issue. It's not like a major damper on the movie. It's just like a plot device. The family dynamic, I think they fracture too easily at some points. And you mentioned this in Fantastic Four 2005 when Ben meets up with Victor Von Doom, and then he kind of like manipulates him, and then all of a sudden Ben's mad at Reed, and it feels a little bit forced. So he kind of turns on Reed a little quickly after this very brief scene with Victor Von Doom, and the same thing happens in Silver Surfer when Johnny overhears Sue and Reed talking about splitting off and starting a family and having a more family conducive life. And then Johnny tells Ben, and then all of a sudden they're like up in arms and like outraged at Sue and Reed. And it's like these fractures in the family dynamic seem very forced and like not authentic and just like kind of shoehorned in to be like, look, they're having a down point, when it's like you're kind of forcing it in. And then the Surfer just explodes Galactus at the end. It's just like not satisfying as a final conflict solver. And like I said, I think they wanted this to be a Johnny arc, but they definitely had something more interesting cooking up with Sue Storm and her connections with Silver Surfer. And she actually dropped a crazy ass line that was a bit psychotic in this one. She said to Victor Von Doom, it was a threat. She's like, did you know I could make a force field inside somebody and make them expand until they explode? And I thought that would be fucking wild if a 2007 movie did that to audiences. I was like, they would be shook. I don't think 2007 campy superhero audiences would have been ready for that. Also, this movie was PG. Did you notice that?
I did.
Silver Surfer's PG. Wild. So I think that, so they definitely couldn't do that to Doctor Doom. But that would have been super badass. But yeah, can't be audiences in 07 were not ready for that. But apparently we were ready for another naked Jessica Alba scene. So there is that. Ambitious. Galactus is a big villain to take on, speaking both as an obstacle in the movie and a movie production standpoint. It's a pretty tough sell, giant planet eating man. Kind of hard to convincingly visually bring it to life. Doom, again, major villain in Marvel. Avengers level threat. He gets taken down with a crane in this movie. Silver Surfer, another tough sell for the audience. It could easily be memed, but I still feel like this depiction of that fascinatingly weird idea for a character in this movie was actually handled with good care. I thought Silver Surfer looked really good. Weta, Peter Jackson's company, did the CGI for Silver Surfer in this movie, and I thought they made a very good, convincing Silver Surfer. Final battle in Silver Surfer, all these ambitious big bads and characters entering the scene make it very difficult for a studio to create a satisfying, relatable, and convincing victory for our heroes. It instead comes from the Silver Surfer, who in the comics had an interesting story to tell on his own. It was hinted at in the movie, but never fully explored. It's too much lore. It's too much stuff to get into, and we don't quite get to dig deep and enjoy that. So this is definitely something that should have been explored deeper in the Silver Surfer standalone movie and not in this one. And I just want to leave this with a final point here. So these movies were an important step in a learning lesson for superhero movies in the 2000s, especially for Marvel, because following the Silver Surfer in the next year would be Paramount's Iron Man, which is going to change the landscape for Marvel movies for the next 20 something odd years. So these were all important steps for Marvel and superhero movies to take. And I think they learned a lot of valuable lessons. I like these movies. I remember seeing this as a kid and being fascinated and being awed and enjoying it and enjoying the spectacle and revisiting these movies. I do understand their flaws, but I still think that they are fun. They are entertaining. First one delivers on the core heart of the family dynamic and the Ben Grimm tragedy story. And Silver Surfer, I think they got a little bit, as you would say, over their skis on that one.
I think it's a good way to put it. Yeah, I agree. I think we're in the same boat as far as first one definitely better than the second one. Second one, they kind of felt like they pigeonholed themselves with Doom and Galactus and Silver Surfer and took on so much. And, you could only take on so many things until the quality starts to fracture a little bit. But no, great breakdown there, bud.
And that is Fantastic Four, the first two movies with Fantastic Four in this title that we're going to be watching this year, because we're definitely watching one more that's going to be coming out theaters. And I think we're going to try and find an internet bootleg version of another one and have a good time with that. Not going to touch Josh Trank's version of Fantastic Four. Sorry, just not interested. But that's it. That's Fantastic Four, the Tim Story duology from the 2000s. We thank you guys so much for listening. If you want more, please follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Just Play It Podcast. Please follow us on X at Just Play It Pod. And you're definitely going to want to be here next time, because next time we roll around, we're not going to be surfing on that silver surfboard, but we might be in a romantic situation that also shares the same title as a Kendrick Lamar song. Nick?
I think that's great. I love this movie already. That's great. I love this movie already because it has my name in it. So what's not to love?
And if you can't get it from those hints, I don't know what to tell you. So Nick, that's it for Fantastic Four for now. Unofficial franchise of the year, apparently. And we're out of here. We're going to be heading gone. And remember, whether you like it or not, it's CLOBBERIN time.
He's like, oh, yeah, I'll work with you guys. Go, give me that surfboard. Yeah, off to China.